Do you think Ferrari is already out of the championship contention?
Hi guys, welcome to the Red Flag Radio YouTube channel. Today we are looking at the 2025 Shanghai Grand Prix and going through all that we experienced as a fan base during the race, including Ferrari's downfall yet again.
Hi guys. Well, the Chinese Grand Prix 2025 saw Oscar Piastri dominate with an effortless drive to secure his first F1 victory of 2025 season, leading a McLaren 1-2 with Lando Norris finishing second despite facing brake issues. George Russell continued his consistent form with P3 while Max Verstappen, once again a lone warrior for Red Bull, finished P4, unable to challenge for that podium. Haas stunned the grid with Esteban Ocon finishing P5 and Oliver Biermann in P8, marking a dream weekend for the team. Kimi Antonelli was good with P6, while Alex Albon on his birthday finished P7 and Carlos Sainz P10 secured vital points for Williams, alongside Lance Stroll grabbing back-to-back points for Aston Martin finishing P9. Meanwhile, Ferrari had a nightmare with both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton disqualified due to technical infringements, wiping out their results. Racing Bulls struggled again with the strategic blunders with Isaac Hajar P11 and Yuki Tsunoda P16 finishing outside the points. While Liam Lawson P12 had another tough weekend in the second Red Bull seat, Jack Doohan finished P13, lost out due to a 10-second penalty, and Fernando Alonso retired early, marking another race without seeing the checkered flag in the season. Lastly, Pierre Gasly also disqualified, meaning Alpine walked away empty handed. Well, the Chinese Grand Prix, let's say it wasn't the most thrilling race on track, but it sure delivered some huge talking points. Let's start with McLaren. McLaren 1 2. What are your views? I'm sure you must
Uh,
be thrilled, excited to see both drivers there. What are your views?
so thrilled and excited are definitely two ways to describe how I feel, and just to harp back to what I said after the uh, Australian Grand Prix, I want to appear as smug as I possibly can appear for another McLaren win. Not only that, a 1-2 at that. And I know it's the beginning of the season, but so far for the main Grand Prix, we're 2 for 2 for pole and 2 for 2 for wins. And
Uh,
a great show of performance by both drivers, especially from Oscar Piastri. And you're quite right, there wasn't much per se in the name of drama during this race, but then credit where credit is due, right? Like all of them just drove very cleanly, more or less. And Oscar did have a lonely race at the front, not much to get challenged by, but that's a good thing. He just had a clean race, no nonsense, just get out there, win, case closed. As for Lando, yeah, the brake issues definitely spiced up the last 5 laps of the race. And I'm going to be honest, when his engineer was constantly asking him to not wear out the brake so much and not go so fast, I did agree with his engineer that let's not cause a crash, let's not have a repeat of Sochi 2021 and bottle a basic a big points all that's in the bag already. But then it did work out in the end, because I think briefly he increased his gap to Russell to 9 seconds, and if he hadn't done that, Russell was 1.3 seconds away from Lando at the end of the race. So maybe Russell would have overtaken Lando with his brake issues. So net net, great gamble by Lando, so to speak, and great weekend for McLaren fans.
It was a much needed weekend for Oscar Piastri, especially after that heartbreak moment in Australia where he was. I think that was a race where they could have got their 50th 1 2, but it didn't happen, especially maybe Australia curse came back. But they got their 50th 1 2. McLaren would be happy with that considering how things were at the end. Yes, Russell was extremely close to overtake Lando. I think if there was one more lap, it would have been second for George Russell, but Lando was doing really well, especially he had to push in that moment. Maybe I feel if he would have avoided that, maybe that problem wouldn't have worsened at that situation. But that's just my opinion. We don't know what was happening at the back end. So as long as they got that 1-2, I think they would be happy. Lando Norris didn't appear that pleased in all honesty after the end because he was like avoiding people. That's how it interpreted with the way he took that result. But I think in a long run he will say that second is not that bad, because now I think he has that mentality that he wants to win every race
Yeah.
from here. And I feel he can't ignore Piastri, because Piastri was so calm in the whole race. Like, I forgot that he was leading the race. It was just like a Max Verstappen race where he's just controlling the whole pace. He's just there, calm and composed, like how we always say about Piastri. And he got that first win of 2025. So I feel Lando Norris should be pleased that he finished P2, but he can fight in the upcoming races, but he can't ignore Piastri. And I think in a long run, McLaren will get that headache of controlling both of these drivers, because let's be honest, the way McLaren are performing, I feel there are only two drivers fighting for that championship. Unless another team comes up with a McLaren type of upgrade in future and bring those drivers back in the contention. But for now, I feel it's just Piastri versus Lando at the moment.
Yeah.
That's how I take it.
That's a fair assessment of the race, and I think therefore we can move on to talking about George Russell, because he has yet again been there to pick up that one podium position when the door was just slightly open. He found a way to walk through it, and another decent performance from him as well. Although he did lose a place at the beginning to Lando, I believe, going into turn one. But then that's okay, because to be fair, you do have to give Lando credit for that. Unlike last
Right.
year, he did not take his starts lightly, and he made a bold move into turn one. So you do have to give him. That's not really something you fault George for. And after that, then I think Russell also had a race similar to Oscar, where until the last 5 laps, he didn't have anything to fight for at all. He was
Right.
just having another lonely race. He was not being able to close the 7 to 9 second gap to Lando, and it was just. But good performance, good points haul from him and Antonelli. And speaking of whom, by the way, driver of the day that confused everyone. Like, there were other drivers who deserved it a lot more. Perhaps Behrman, perhaps Ocon. They were a lot more. Even Hajar, even though he didn't score points, he still did his damnedest to do so. So, but
Right.
anyway, a decent performance from him as well. At least he's finishing in the points, unlike some of the other rookies. So, yeah, what about Mercedes?
I think Russell has to be that driver of the two races, because he's consistently putting Mercedes where, we thought that maybe Mercedes won't be there. Russell is just minding his own business and just trying to be there with the McLaren boys, considering if something goes wrong at their end, Russell will be that driver who can be the next driver to win the race, I feel. If if there's that case where McLaren face any issues or they continue fighting against each other, I feel Russell will be that driver who will say, "Thank you very much. I am there to pick up those points." And we have seen in Austria when Verstappen and Lando had their issues, he was there to win that race. So I feel Russell is doing what is needed for Mercedes, and he's there, like getting two podiums back to back. It's an amazing achievement,
Yeah.
and he's just showing that he can be consistent. And speaking about the stars, I feel Russell went way too aggressive. I thought that probably he wanted to be at front because that's the best opportunity to fight. Because if I feel Russell was in P1 and he would have overtaken Piastri at turn one, I feel he would have defended really well and very aggressively to an extent he knows. So I think he took that chance, and because of that chance, he lost to Lando as well because he was too aggressive initially. But I feel he did whatever it was needed. And coming back to Antonelli and the driver of the day, so he finished P8 on the racetrack, which was decent, I'll say. But yeah, driver of the day, it's more like a popularity award these days. Let's not talk about driver of the day considering how it goes. So I feel Antonelli did well. He finished P6, so 8 points. On track, he was P8, so it's fine. As long as Mercedes are getting the points, I feel they will be happy with Antonelli. So overall, another decent weekend. I don't think there will be any complaints. They are continuing to get those points and be there with McLaren, or at least be that second best team considering other teams having their issues. And speaking about issues, Ferrari. Classic, another classic. Just when you think Ferrari might have a clean weekend, they find a way to grab the headlines for all the wrong reasons. I mean, both drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, both disqualified, and not for the same reasons. Hamilton's car failed the FIA skid block wear test, meaning they had that excessive plank wear, which indicates that car was running too low for their liking. So that's one thing. And the other case of Leclerc, Ferrari was underweight after post-race fuel checks. I think it was 799 even after changing the front wing to the, let's say, the front wing which has all the configurations. So a brutal end for both drivers and a nightmare for Ferrari, who not only lost some valuable points but also had to watch their drivers with these misfortunes. Do you think Ferrari is already out of the championship contention? Considering we saw how they struggled in the first race with all the dramas, and now this, I think Ferrari, I really have no words. I feel there are moments where they show that they are back, but then they show those moments where they are at the back. What are your views? What can you say about these misfortunes?
Yeah, so I think, no, I don't think it's the end for Ferrari, but even without the disqualification, if you look at their style of going about the race, so for whatever reason, Charles Leclerc had more pace with the end plate being broken. Like, that's problem number one. How do you explain that to your driver that no, your car is broken, but somehow you're faster? So just, and lucky of them to be able to convince the FIA to not receive a black and orange flag for that as well. That's the first problem. The second problem is that we still saw a little bit of beef between the drivers and their engineers. For example, when Charles was asked to not use curb, he just said nope. And thirdly, the strategy that they chose for Hamilton to two-stop and then try to full send it down to Max and try to catch up to him, I think that was not necessary either, because they were going well. With the strategy, I get the gamble, but then after accounting for the out lap and the warm up lap, and then finally around third lap, you have the right temperature in your hard compound tires, then you have to start to make up a 21-second gap in around 16 odd laps, if I remember correctly. So
And
it
it's not
was,
easy.
yeah, and so even without the disqualification, the race was just a comedy of errors for Ferrari. And while that is disheartening and disappointing, I don't think it's the end for Ferrari, because the drivers are trying, man. They were doing much better than they did last time around in Australia. And the car clearly had the pace as well. No matter how you dissect it, no matter how the cookie crumbles, the cars did have pace.
Yeah, we saw at the sprint.
Yeah,
Hamilton won, so there is
exactly.
pace.
So the Ferrari was one of the weekend favorites, and in my opinion, they fully deserve to occupy one of the steps on the podium as well, not Russell. And that's why I think it's not over for Ferrari. But I mean, that being said, no one can predict how their minds work. It's a bunch of goblins running around in there, and that's why I just don't think, no matter how much of expertise you bring to any conversation, Ferrari just cannot be predicted. You just don't know what's going to happen. You might see that by the time they enter the third race, they're running circles around McLaren. Wishful thinking for Ferrari fans, but it is a possibility, even albeit
Right.
a small one. And at the same time, again, they might just continue this tomfoolery and keep making a meme out of themselves every weekend. Again, hate to do this, but insert Ferrari clown pit wall photo here. So, Rishabh,
Right.
I genuinely don't know what to say either, as you expressed as well, because how do you try to predict something that does not know what it itself is doing? I'm not sure they themselves really understood what strategy they were trying to go for. They're just playing with the drivers like they're lab rats. Like, oh, let's see which track favors which strategy. Winning and all is too easy for them. Apparently, they want to keep things spicy.
It's classic, man. I genuinely have no words at the moment, considering, look, the strategy might have worked out if every driver went for two stop, which clearly none of them did. Everyone predicted that two stop will happen, which I guess no one did except for the Racing Bulls, and they didn't get any points. I was still confused at why they went for that two stopper for Hamilton. Maybe it's just that they wanted to try things with Hamilton and see if they can force other drivers to go for that two stop, which clearly none of the teams thought about it, I guess, and that didn't work. And maybe with the two stop they were able to justify the underweight thing for Hamilton, because I don't think Hamilton's car was underweight, and clearly they said that with the underweight thing, if they would have gone for the two stopper for Leclerc, the underweight thing would have happened. That's their justification in the statement they gave. So it's weird to say whether they should have gone for two stop for Leclerc as well. So to secure some of the points which they didn't get because of that disqualification. But these are the things that we should not talk about in the first place. We have other teams as well. Yes, we saw Gasly also got disqualified, but you have to think about these issues and whether they are losing too much instead of making even small gains. I feel they have to circle back and see what they should do, especially when three races are coming. We don't want Ferrari to be on that place where, we talk about Ferrari but only for the wrong reasons. We want them to be fighting for those wins, fighting for with McLaren, because I was genuinely happy when I saw Hamilton winning that sprint weekend. It was a fresh breath of energy seeing Hamilton in red, super happy, super excited that yes, I'm here to fight for the wins. But when we saw their pace, we kind of expected them to be fighting for at least P3 with Russell, but they were nowhere close. And adding misery, they've had that contact in turn one. And when Hamilton said, "Someone hit me," I think Ferrari didn't tell them that it was Leclerc, which makes sense because it's an internal team thing as well. And there were that moments where they wanted to play the team game by switching them whenever it was needed. So they need to find a balance between both drivers and make some calls where at least they are consistent with other drivers instead of just playing around and forcing other teams to take those gambles. I feel that is not needed in some cases. Maybe in some cases it is needed, but not in every case they should go and playing some strategy gambles. Like how we saw in Australian Grand Prix, they tried something with the tires in a wet track, and now with the two stop. I feel they should go with some consistent approach as well instead of just playing some strategy gambles, because they have that pace where they can, even if they can't fight for P1, they can fight for that another podium position, which if McLaren drivers have occupied, there's that one position they can fight for. So maybe they have to go on, do that debrief and find that balance. But yeah, hopefully they will come back stronger and they don't want to be on that wrong page. So yeah, overall there's not much we can else say apart from the 0 points and the disqualification, but hopefully they will be back and maybe they can fight against Max Verstappen, because sadly that's the only driver they will be fighting from Red Bull, because the other driver is nowhere close to at the front. So yeah, Max Verstappen again, there were phases where he had no pace initially, but he came back extremely well at the end where he had that performance and got that overtake done on Charles Leclerc. But P4 for Max Verstappen, I think that's a damage limitation for them. What are your views for the whole team in general?
So, okay, first things first, going into the triple header, they really need to help out Liam get a grip on the car, because it's simply not a car that he's learned how to cope with yet, just through 3 days of testing and the first couple of races. Because, and if you remember, there was an interview a few years ago with Albon where he alluded to the fact that Max likes his car so sharp at the front end. It's like having your mouse on very, very high sensitivity. The tiniest movement will cause your cursor to move a lot. That's the kind of sharpness and sensitivity Max likes, which might suit his driving style very well. He might be happy to drive on that razor sharp edge, but that's not suiting the other drivers. And as we've consistently seen throughout the years, since Gasly, Albon, Checo, and now Liam, Red Bull is just killing the careers of their second driver in a way. And this is not an exaggeration, this is not a sharp or harsh comment towards them either. It's just history. We are just speaking on the basis of what we've seen, and that has very much been the case. And that's just it, right? You need to sort these things out for your second driver and help him have a car that's at least something he can bring points in.
Right.
So the team needs to work with Liam first and foremost and take his inputs as well about, I know he's a rookie, I know he's a secondary driver to Red Bull. Both those things combined, I doubt they're going to ask him much about car development. But be that as it may, they do need to work out how to balance the car for him. Because as we saw during his few races with Racing Bulls last year, he was doing very well. And if the
Right.
car was suiting him, he was doing very well. He was overtaking Checo as well last season.
Right.
So,
And that's the reason why he got that promotion in a way.
exactly. So it's ironic that Red Bull doesn't see that it's the car, it's not the driver. And that's exactly what we want to urge everyone else to see as well, that it's the car, it's not the driver in this case. We can say that with a strong degree of confidence. He is
Right.
not a bad driver in a Red Bull. And as for Max, yeah, damage limitation, good job on running away from Hamilton as well when he realized what was happening. The jig was up for Hamilton very quickly once Max realized what was going on behind him. And he did a great job to overtake Leclerc, as you said. He did a great job of keeping himself away from the threat of the Ferraris as well. Still, I suppose on average the car is not yet there for him either, because he never made an impression on Russell, and there was never any indication of whether or not he will even show up next to Russell. So yeah, the car is not yet there, but then that's something that Max himself and the team themselves have been admitting for a while now. So
Right.
decent damage limitation. They're doing what they need to do. Just keep on going and have some points.
Exactly. That's the damage limitation they are going with, considering, as you said, they know they are nowhere close to McLaren at the moment. But for how long they can go with that, God knows when. God knows when the new upgrade will come and will put them back where they want to be. Because I feel there will be moments where Max Verstappen will also get frustrated. Like, this is not what I have signed up for. Give me a car so that I can fight. Even if there's that small upgrade that can put them close to McLaren, I think Max Verstappen can put himself back to fighting both the drivers, because he's a four-time world champion and we know he can do whatever is needed from his side. So Red Bull need to give him some tools to fight, because at the moment it's not Max Verstappen's fault that he can't fight at the front. So long story short, Red Bull needs to find a way not only to satisfy Verstappen but also in a way to Lawson, because if even if they are considering that they want to promote Tsunoda for the next 3 days, I don't think it will work out, because it, like you said, it's not a driver's fault, it's a car fault at the moment. If Sonoda's driving style is close to Max Verstappen, maybe it can work out, but is that a risk they want to take straight away and just put Lawson back to Racing Bulls or even out of that racing seat? Because we heard that there are rumors that Colapinto will be promoted to Racing Bulls. Again, these are some rumors that are coming. So that means that Lawson won't even have a seat to drive for. So these are just rumors, and I feel we know Red Bull are ruthless with their second seat, at least, even how things are. So they have to find a balance and tell that we have that support, we believe in you. They were showing that support to Sergio Perez, because removing Sergio Perez was a hefty cost that they had to bear with. So I don't know. It's something they have to find a balance. And if there are more results where Lawson is just at the rear end, I feel he won't stay with Red Bull for that much long. So let's see what is planned for them. Whether Lawson will drive for Red Bull in the next 3 races, it's a big question mark at the moment. But I feel he needs more time. Can Red Bull afford that time? I don't know. But
Yeah, okay, but speaking of drivers that are doing well, however, and the sister team to Red Bull. Racing Bulls was doing a very good job in the race until they, like Hamilton, decided to go on a two-stopper. I think those were the only three drivers that decided a two-stopper, and it worked out for none of them.
Exactly. I feel they will be kicking themselves that they got 0 points because they had that potential to fight at the front. My prediction said that Hayaja will get top six, but nowhere close to that. And the second stop was something that, didn't work for any driver. So maybe they should have gone for only one driver and play the cards with maybe Sonoda to wait and see. I don't know what they were trying because this strategy didn't work for them, and they will be kicking themselves that they should have done better on that. So I don't know. 0 points won't satisfy them because if we have to talk about another team who was right place at right time, like we said in the previous race preview, Haas, they were amazing. The strategy gambles they played with Ocon doing whatever it was needed, and he was the lead driver with the one stop strategy, and he was perfect in the way. Maybe the driver of the day, he should have got that, but he was where it was needed. P5 for Haas, and then Oliver Bierman, he fought for that
Amazing drive
position.
from Behrman. Amazing
Amazing.
drive, yeah. Simply
Exactly.
lovely from him as well.
Right,
And
and getting those crucial points and now going ahead of Kicksauber.
yeah,
This is what they needed.
yeah, exactly. And we didn't expect this at the beginning of the season. Granted, as we always say, that testing is not a metric for measuring actual season's performance, but then we genuinely did not give enough credit to Haas, and now we must do that because not only do they have a good car, they have also got Esteban Ocon pulling some weight, and then Behrman out of nowhere. He has bounced back very well from Australia, by the way.
Ciao.
Yeah, ciao.
Trying his favoured move, he is enjoying the superior traction.
Multiple overtakes. I think it was he had 4 or 5 overtakes to make it into the points positions, and amazing drive from the little man.
I think he was the only driver who was pulling off some amazing overtakes in
Yeah,
this race, considering how boring this race was, and everyone thought that maybe tire struggles will spice this race up, but clearly it didn't. So, an amazing drive from both the drivers. Whatever it was needed, they did. They got those crucial points, and they will be super happy to take those points away from Racing Bulls, Sauber, and even Alpine. So, amazing drive. And speaking about amazing drive, Lance Stroll, he has been consistently in the top 10 for all the three races, including the sprint. Yes, on road he got P11, but he was amazing with the first stint. I think Stroll allowed other drivers to go with that one stop. Shame he had to pit early because I feel he was driving really well, but I think with the Sonoda's pit stop, he was forced to pit and go with that strategy. Like now he has to pit and fight. Shame he didn't had any pace on medium tires, which I felt none of the drivers did, except for Ollie Beerman, who drove really well until those moments where he couldn't even fight and go ahead of Albon. So I feel decent points for Aston Martin, considering where I thought they will be, and no complaints from my end for the Stroll part. But I feel they need to find where they are lagging for Alonso because they are not using Alonso's potential. He should be with Stroll at least, if not ahead of Stroll. That's the bare minimum we need from Alonso's side as well.
now that you mention it, in fact, let's talk about Williams since you mentioned Albon. Brilliant defense from him against Ollie Behrman, because for a moment there, Ollie Behrman looked like he was unstoppable. He looked like he was in a jet plane there for a minute.
Right.
So great defense from Albon, keeping him back there. And I know it's a function of getting promoted to P10, but Sainz did end up with P10, which was a nice way for Williams to wrap a bow around the weekend and bring in a good bunch of points, firmly planting them in the fourth position for constructors, at least as of now. And as we mentioned in some of our previous videos, we did expect Williams to see up there with the midfield, upper midfield section. So decent drive from both drivers. Not really something to write home about because they were sort of just having their own race, but they did the right thing for enough number of laps to stay in the fight for points, and then the Ferrari disqualification just helped Sainz that much.
Exactly.
So decent
You need that
race.
luck.
Yeah,
You
you
need that
do need
luck in
that luck.
those moments, especially if you're fighting in the midfield. And that's the reason why Haas will be happy with that Ferrari disqualification. And same goes for Aston Martin as well. That 2 points will help them to move forward. So it's something that they should be happy with the double points for Williams, and that will definitely help them to fight when there will be races when they won't get any points. So that's an amazing achievement for them to have those both drivers getting those points.
Yeah, and as a small little birthday present, Albon did briefly get to lead the race as well.
Exactly. Good birthday present for Albon in a way.
So yeah, all in all, a great race to for fans of some of the teams, not all of the teams like Ferrari. But it was a little bit of a simple race, a very basic race with a not lot of drama, but that's fine. We had plenty of drama in the first race. I think we're good.
True. I think we got all the drama post race, so that's one way to put
True.
it. But yeah, I think that's a wrap on the Chinese Grand Prix. It may not have been the most thrilling race, but we have got plenty of talking points with McLaren's dominance, Ferrari's disaster, Russell's consistency, and Haas delivering big. Now, 2 races down, and we are just getting started. The championship fight is shaping up, and things are about to get even more intense because guess what? A triple header is coming up next, and that's 3 races back to back, starting with the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend. So, if you don't want to miss anything, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Red Flag Radio F1, and hit that notification bell icon so you stay updated with all the action that we are bringing. So you can drop your thoughts in the comments, who impressed you the most in China and who needs to step up in Japan, especially Ferrari. But let's keep the conversation going, and we will have a lot of things to talk about in the next video. So thank you. Ciao. See you in the next one.
Bye,
Goodbye.
guys. See you in a couple of weeks.
Bye bye.